Many organizations are quite concerned about how we're going to feed the growing human population, expected to reach 9.6 billion by the year 2050 because demand for food, including meat and dairy, will nearly double what it is today. And looking at the future, we do have some troubling trends, there's no question. We'll likely see increased numbers and wealth of the middle class and an associated increase in demand for animal products, which will come at the expense of developing countries that have the most land. Meat consumption will rise astronomically in developing countries over the next 30 years, which will bring with it predictable increase in Western diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Eventually, the wealth of any nation will be redefined in terms of the natural resources and strength of its sustainable systems. Our survival will depend on how quickly and accurately we begin to define this word sustainable. We'll see sustainability become a growth opportunity and a risk management strategy for businesses, essentially transforming economics. You know, futurists sit around and ask, what one new idea will change the world drastically in the next century? Well, will it be new nanotechnology? Perhaps transhumanism and robotics? Traceability within businesses, or even renewable energy systems? In terms of ensuring our existence, that one transforming idea that futurists are asking about is for all humans on Earth to eat only plant-based foods. This is where many of our problems begin, with statements such as this from organizations such as this. In fact, they are right. There's no question. The livestock is important. The less we produce, the more secure food will be. No question about that. The demand to raise, slaughter, and eat animals is hardly believable. Last year, the one-year figures look like this. With these figures expected to double by the year 2050, what exactly does the phrase eating less meat mean here? Perhaps 73 million tons of beef will be produced. Sadly, this is an example of how global depletion by way of animal agriculture is being addressed, which is that it's not being addressed. This is the action statement from one of the most widely recognized environmental organizations in the world. And as you can see, their idea of attacking climate change is by reducing our use of fossil fuels, stopping Keystone and TPP, keeping coal in the ground. Wow, those are pretty novel ideas. I'm glad they thought of that themselves. Haven't heard those before. Nothing at all about the effects of animal agriculture. So when you join a movement like this, understand that you will only be moving part of the way. At this stage, one would have to ask, what are all the conservation groups doing about this problem? You know, the ones we give our money to. All these groups are concerned about climate change, no problem there, but none of them have made a statement about the profound effect eating animals has on our environment, despite the fact that it does. And despite the fact that we've entrusted these groups to preserve and protect our planet. Where's all of our donated money going? Aside from those conservation groups who are still in the dark, there are a few researchers and organizations that are quite aware of the dire predicament that we're in and the very short timelines that we're faced with. Any of these folks will bluntly tell you that our species is in a state of unsustainability and that we can't remain on this course for very much longer. They'll all tell you that. But not one of them is connecting that final dot. They continue telling us that our survival is in peril and that we need to change. But change what? And they make it very clear that we need to stop over-consuming and overproducing. But again, over-consuming and overproducing what exactly? Again, fossil fuels and waste are very easy targets for them to point their fingers at. Without genuine concern for the urgency of the problem, we tend to point our fingers at other targets related to sustainability that have less emotional ties. Those in influential positions, our leaders, are currently addressing the animal agriculture sustainability connection by adopting any one of these methods. Usually the first one, denial. General misuse of the word sustainable, over-focus on climate change, and suppression of information. Well, why aren't we getting the truth from those with platforms? That's a good question. Those who are guiding us. Well, it's because of three reasons. First, they're comfortably unaware. Or second, they're partially aware, but they simply can't bring themselves around to making the right statement because they themselves consume animals. After all, how can we expect one of our leaders to guide us toward health and restoration of our planet if they can't even do it for themselves? And lastly, many of our leaders are afraid. They're afraid they're going to lose their audience. In the year 2000, The United Nations established 8 Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs. These are quantifiable goals to be achieved by the year 2015 that addressed important issues like world poverty, disease, gender equality, hunger, and even environmental sustainability. Well, obviously, these goals failed because all of these issues still exist and are even greater problems today than they were 15 years ago. One reason for their failure is because these MDGs did not properly address the core problem of human rights, never accurately defined what environmental sustainability is supposed to mean or how to achieve it, because they never properly positioned food choice and they never properly positioned animal agriculture in any of their efforts. Human rights and environmental sustainability and food choice are deeply interconnected. Knowing the MDGs ran out of time and they failed, the United Nations held a sustainability summit just last year in New York City, where 193 nations formally adopted an agenda for sustainability, and they adopted a brand new set of global goals to be achieved by the year 2030. In some ways, it was impressive. But of the 17 goals, 10 are directly related to food choice, as they should be. Therefore, it's highly unlikely that these goals will ever be met if leaders fail to understand this concept of optimal relative sustainability. And why are they waiting until the year 2030? I mean, look at their number 2 goal here about promoting sustainable agriculture in order to end world hunger. How's that going to happen if there's not universal definition of the word sustainable, and if that definition is not accurate? And here's some of their other goals, such as ensuring sustainable management of water, sustainable consumption and production patterns, conserving our oceans. They even plan to halt biodiversity loss, which we saw yesterday is accelerating. That's because they've never factored in properly food choice. This is important because this is what will be driving global policy making and funding over the next 14 years. Regarding sustainability, picture 2 points in time, and this is important to understand. Picture 2 points in time and space. Point A is where we currently are as a global community. Point B is where we need to go, the point of true sustainability. Now, we're very far away from point B, and there's a vast sea of challenges between the two. Most businesses and individuals and organizations in the world are getting on board a large, powerful ship at point A, trying to get to sustainability. But their navigators don't know how to get to point B. Their compasses and GPS systems, and Siri, I guess, are broken, which is very dangerous because all those on board this large ship think they're going to make it to point B, but they won't. They're floating around further and further away from it in a zone that I call, again, pseudo-sustainability. Worse, there's a narrowing timeline before point B will be too far out of range and will never make it. Well, a few of us sitting on the dock at point A, led by Stephen Shore, can clearly see point B. And we know how to get there rather easily. We could probably just hop in and swim over to point B. But here's the kicker. We can't get there by ourselves. No, getting to the point of true sustainability, or point B, is a collective effort. We have to move the critical mass, taking all those on that other large ship with us. We need to travel together and quickly enough, or none of us will make it. That's the way sustainability is, especially for humanity. Therefore, our leaders, those steering that large, powerful ship with most of the world on it, our leaders need a new navigation system. Every 5 years, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines are updated. These guidelines influence many programs in the United States and in Canada and certain other areas of the world. For the first time earlier this year, it was recommended by last year was recommended by their prestigious advisory committee that these new dietary guidelines take into strong consideration the environment. That's for the first time ever. So that set off campaigns like this one in a positive direction, with over 100 major health and environmental groups in support of these recommendations. But it also set off a massive backlash, as expected, from the meat and dairy industries, because they believe that scientific evidence regarding the environment and food has no place in the dietary guidelines. Just a few months ago, these guidelines were released officially, and there was no mention of any of the advisory committee's recommendations about our environment, no mention whatsoever. It was very disappointing for me to see this, but I am encouraged to see grassroots efforts like these. Wonderful new documentary films like this one to help matters. Food Choices was just released globally on September 2nd, much like Cowspiracy. I was very fortunate to be one of the lead consultants for this film, and I'm very excited for all of you to see it. I hope you'll be able to join me next Friday when it will be launched here at this event.